Hey guys, we are going to be continuing on in our study today, kind of looking at the question of, to prepare or not to prepare. And the question we've been asking the last time and today um, is it wrong to prepare? Is it wrong to store up? One of the things we've been looking at is the stories. I saw another one even today of per customer as it continues dealing with the global coronavirus pandemic. About supply chain is what it comes down to. So there you go. You look at stuff like that and you say, okay, well, what do I do? Should I, for some of y'all, you probably knew that was coming because you watched here and you thought, I got to get out there and get enough hot dogs to last for a while. And maybe you done that. But, that do I need to get nervous about stuff like this? Or should I just simply just kind of say, hey, this is in the Lord's hands. I'm going to continue about my business, and I'm going to trust Him that it's going to kind of work out. So that's kind of the big issue that we want to be talking about. Now, before we start, a couple things. First off, I am not sponsored by Oatmeal Cream Pie. However, if they would like to sponsor a morning segment of my Wednesday Bible study online, we could do that. We could have I would taste every Little Debbie. I mean, that's if they want to give me, Little Debbie want to give me snowballs and all sorts of stuff, we could open them up and package them and have you try them with me as we go through this study. It would be almost like we're in person together, but we're not. So, before we started last time, I asked a question, which was, what are for sure things you're not supposed to store up for yourself as a Christian? So glad some of you went there and you looked into it. And the first one that is very obvious, you got to remember, is that this is Jesus' word. That's how it is with one who stores up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God. And it's obviously when we're being told that you don't store up treasure for yourself, you want to put your treasures in heaven, right? Notice what he says in Matthew, where he goes here. If you were to go over also to Matthew, he continues to look at this. And we're going to be over in Luke 12 today, but I want you to think about this. Look at Matthew 6, and don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break and steal. Wherever your treasure is, there your heart will be. Now, we're talking about treasures in this case, and it still doesn't help us with the food piece. Do I store up on meat? Do I store up on flour? Do I store up on that? Because, in the back of your mind, you're still wondering, can I? Because we've already been told, at least on the treasure piece. So, that should mean for yourself is, one of the things we're going to get through is Jesus is going to make it very clear. As a Christian, we're not to be, extravagantly just store in terms of building up a life for us. There is some aspect where we should put our priorities on His things and what He wants us to do with our stuff and with our lives. Now, there's one other that was kind of the question that I threw out there was one that I don't think some of y'all were expecting. I'll get over to it in just a sec. So this one was kind of a trick question. It's actually in the book of Hosea, and I want you to see what he says. Ephraim's guilt is preserved. His sin is stored up. The idea of what don't you store up for yourself is sin should not be something you store up for yourself. So the image is, in the Old Testament, the prophets, is that the people of Israel would continue. It's like their accounts just kept growing and growing and growing and growing with sin, and that account has been filled up. Don't do that. Even for you as a Christian, you think, well, what difference does it make? It's all been forgiven. Yeah, but if you're sitting back and you're thinking, let me just load up because it's all been forgiven, that's probably, maybe, a good indication that you are not. And you need to get yourself right with the Lord. Okay, so here's where I want to bring us up to today, because we're going to go back to Luke 12, and the issue comes to a story like this. Now, this is not a huge debate that I have found raging by any means. This is one that I know that for many of us, I feel like Christians are often kind of on either side of how much do I prepare for things, from security, the things I do for security, the things I do for food, all of that, how much to prepare or to not to prepare. And that's kind of where I wanted to take this, is it's not just should you store up for, the meat shortage, or should you store up for, flour, but really just in general of what should a good Christian principle be for preparation, right? So let's look at this story and let's see if this is applicable, okay? Now someone in the crowd, this is Luke 12, verse 13, someone from the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." The problem with me reading and you seeing is you can see when I don't read, when I skip over and things like that, versus when I read out loud, you think I might just have a different translation, but I don't. I'm with you, I just read too fast sometimes. "Friend," he said to him, "who appointed me judge or arbitrator over you?" So this is somebody who's saying, Jesus, Dad's died, we've got all this stuff, and make sure you tell my brother to split it with me. And Jesus says, "Who made me your judge?" And then he told them, "Watch out and be on guard against all kinds of greed, because one's life is not in the abundance of his possessions." So then he told them a parable. "A rich man's land was very productive. And he thought to himself, 'What should I do? Since I don't have anywhere to store my crops, I'll do this,' he said. 'I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones and store all my grain and my goods there. Then I'll say to myself, you have many goods stored up for you for many years. Take it easy, eat, drink, and enjoy yourself.'" Now, this is the story. And remember, this is a parable. And so in the story, there's a rich man. He's got a ton of land. He's looking, he's got all of his crops there. Now, everybody would have some sort of storage piece, because notice what he says here. "I will tear down my barns." He's looking at what he has, and he's saying, I don't have enough. I don't have anywhere to store my crops. That's what he's saying, is I need more than already what I've got. And so he says, I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. And then notice what he's doing here. Point out, not only is he storing his grain and my goods. So he's got way more stuff now he wants to fill his life with. And he says, I've stored up many goods stored for many years. So take it easy. So now I'm just going to kick back because I've got everything I could ever need. I don't need anything else. And then God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life is demanded of you." Now, this is something we're going to come back to, the image of the fool, because we're going to look at some verses in Proverbs right after this. And this is something that Proverbs always contrasts, is the righteous and the fool, the prudent and the fool, the righteous and the wicked, all of that. This very night your life is demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? That's how it is with one who stores up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. So we come back to that image, the way that we ended. So look, some might say, you see, this is one of the reasons why you should not store up things, store up food for yourself. Because you see, it was Jesus hammers this rich man for storing up so many things in his barn. Guys, I don't think that's the point of the story. I don't think the point is don't have a barn. I don't think the point is don't have a garage where you store all your stuff. Now that's starting to hurt a little bit, right? Because some of y'all will say, well, you shouldn't do that, but you got a garage filled with junk. You can't even park your car on your driveway because there's junk in your driveway. You got to park on the street. I don't know. Maybe that is you. But notice really what this story is about. It's a parable. We're not meant to take every detail. The point is what Jesus says right here. Be on guard against all greed, because one's life is not in the abundance of his possessions. Now, to be truthful, the rich man what is he doing? He's putting emphasis on his things and on his food. So he's stored up enough for himself to where he's at a point now where he says, I don't need anything else. My life is to fulfill for myself. We're going to be talking about that on Sunday briefly. Is a verse that Paul uses in 1 Timothy chapter 5 about this idea of living extravagantly and beyond, beyond what you should have, and wasteful to that point. So here we have a man who has taken everything. He doesn't care. It's all about him at this point, and his goal is to continue to amass things for himself. So much to the point where he says, I don't need anything anymore, and then God's going to take everything away from him. I mean, we all know people like this, guys. We all know people, and maybe this is you, where you said, I've got everything I need, I don't need God. My life is too good right now. Everything is in place, everything's working right now. Now, it's probably shaken up a little bit right now during this shutdown where you can't work. But for the most part, for many of us, we know that we know people who do this. So I don't think it's a fair assessment to take this passage and to say you can't have a freezer, you can't have a shelf or a food pantry where you keep up to a certain, because many of us, right? You'll go down, you look at the rest of the story, right? You look at things like this, and you've got to think about this too. This should stick in your mind, right? Notice Jesus is talking about, don't worry about your life and what you'll eat, or about what you'll, or your body, or what you'll wear, for life is more than food, and the body more than clothing. Consider the ravens. They don't sow or reap. They don't have a storeroom or a barn, yet God feeds them. Aren't you worth more than even the birds? Can you add any moment? Can any of you add a moment to his lifespan by worrying? If you're not able to do even a little thing, why worry about the rest? Consider how the wild flowers grow. They don't labor or spin thread. Yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was adorned like one of these. If that's how God clothes the grass, which is in the field today, and thrown into the furnace tomorrow, how much more will he do for you, you of little faith? Don't strive for what you should eat and what you should drink. Don't be anxious. For the Gentile world eagerly seeks all of these things, and your Father knows that you need them. So if you're looking at these verses, right, these are the things that we need to really think about. And I think what Jesus is making the point here is that really you should not be someone freaking out. If you're a Christian, there should be something different about the way that you handle yourself. This is about anxiety. This is about greed. This is about greed in the previous passage, anxiety here. So there is something to be said, though, about the way that we hold ourselves during this time. That for the Christian, we should not be just constantly overreacting. I've got to get more. I've got to get more. Because the truth be told, if you don't have a trust in God, that's never going to happen. If you don't have a trust in God, you're never going to feel like you've got enough. You're never going to feel that it's going to be ready and you're going to be completely, because what's going to happen is, and guys, I am saying this as somebody who struggles with this same piece of, I've got to imagine every scenario in my mind for how I can make sure I can account for those, so that therefore I am completely independent. Whereas what the text is trying to tell you is, guys, you need to be dependent upon God. You need to recognize that He's got you and He's taking care of it. Like I said, I don't think that these verses are meant to still say that you should not have a pantry, that you should not have some storage. But I think it should be a good reminder that at the end of the day, my relationship to what I have stored up, what I have, has been is ultimately going to matter if God's involved. I mean, think about all the things that you've got. At the end of the day, whether those are going to help you or not, it's going to be from the Lord. the way that those will either not spoil or not be stolen or broken. I mean, all of that is so fleeting. All of those things could be gone. All those things you've stored up for yourself, if you try to do it yourself, it's going to, you're never going to make it. But at the end of the day, there should be a place for the Christian. So where you say, yeah, I've been prudent, I've been diligent, but at the same time, I have to stop, and I can't hoard. I can't begin to just amass because I'm going to take care of everything and every scenario. But at some point, I've got to stop and say, it's all in God's hands. And I want to be wise, but I also am going to trust Him because He says, don't worry about these things. Now, that can also be said that it could be through your preparations that God has made it for you now. So, I mean, let me give you some insight into this, because let's go over to the book of Proverbs, right? This is what's interesting. You look at something like Proverbs chapter 6. Look at what Proverbs says. And now, granted, this is to an agrarian culture. This is to a culture that relies on farming. So this is what would work. Now, remember, in ancient Israel, everyone's a farmer for the most part. And so everyone depends on this. So notice what it says. Go to the ant, you slacker, observe its ways and become wise. Without a leader, administrator, or ruler, it prepares its provisions in summer. It gathers its food during harvest. How long will you stay in bed, you slacker? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the arms to rest, and your poverty will come like a robber, your need like a bandit. So that's something I think is important, is a good balance out here. Because I don't think what Jesus is teaching is in opposition to this at all. Jesus has not come to do away with any of this. Jesus is coming to fulfill this. However, the teachings here are one and the same. I think what's happening is in Proverbs, it's saying there's a need to be diligent. There's a need to be wise and seeing what's coming and getting ready for that. And Jesus is saying, and kind of balancing that piece out and saying, yet at the end of the day, you trust God. So here's what you don't do, just as a scenario here. You don't say, well, I'm going to be a slacker and I'm just going to trust God with whatever, right? Because that's not what the option is here. And that would be totally against what Scripture says. You plan, you work, you make sure you do your part. And at the end of the day, though, that's going to be in God's hands. God's going to control that. If you don't do anything, you're testing God, too, by being a lazy rear. Pardon, but that's what the point is. Look at another one here. Look at Proverbs chapter 10. The son who gathers during summer is prudent. The son who sleeps during harvest is disgraceful. So the book of Proverbs is continuing to push that when it's time and you see it coming, take care of business. Don't just say, well, I'm going to eat when it's all ready and it's all good time. No, being prudent means I'm going to work hard and I'm going to take care of business. I'm going to get ready. And that's what they did in the Old Testament. When you harvested when it was harvest time, and you held on to everything and you made sure that it was enough to get you through the next few months. That's how life has always worked back in the old days. Now, things are different today because now you have a global system, a supply chain where it's hot in one area, they can grow certain things like wheat. What is it, like in the winter here? Like we're the cabbage supply of the world. Yuma is, but Arizona, right? At least of America. I don't know. Maybe it is the world. I'm ignorant on farming. Okay, I'm not a farmer. But in those days, localized. You get the stuff during the season. You hold on to it, and it gets you through, and then you're ready. And so what he's saying is, for those people, you weren't going to wait. The Walmart isn't going to open up for another 3,000 years to have groceries ready to get you. At this point, you just do what you got to do. Get your stuff, work hard, store up, be ready, because it's coming. Okay? It's going to come when things aren't going to grow, just kind of like they are at my house. That's all year round. Things don't grow. I try. Believe me, I try. I bought stuff from Home Depot the other day. You put it in. It's supposed to get the soil ready. And guess what? It doesn't grow. There's nothing to say about Home Depot. I like Home Depot, but Why don't my plants grow, Home Depot? Why? Why is it every house I've ever gone to, I try to grow, and it doesn't grow? I think it could be me. All right. The slacker does not plow during planting season. At harvest time he looks. There is nothing. See? The Proverbs is saying, this is just how it works, people. If you don't prepare, you're not going to have anything. So this is a good balance, okay? What I'm trying to do is throw out a good balance today, which is this. Trust God. God is in control of everything. Remember what Jesus says, by the way, in Luke chapter 4. He's hungry. The devil tempts him to have this bread, to break this fast. And Jesus says, it's written, man must not live on bread alone. Now, of course, he's quoting from the book of Deuteronomy. And here's what it says in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 3. Come on. Detu. I just typed in Detu. Deuteronomy. He humbled you by letting you go hungry. Then he gave you manna to eat, which you and your fathers had not known, so that you might learn that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. I think this is what it comes down to. I think there's a safe assumption to say that you do what you need to do. You store what you can. If you're prudent and you see things happening, you take advantage of the fact that right now it might be good. You're not a farmer. Maybe you are, but maybe you're not, because most likely you're watching this. And if you're part of my congregation, you live in Phoenix. Now, granted, that's not safe to say because there's people with farms. This valley's crazy. City, farm, farm. It's just crazy. But anyways, that being said is, right now you might look and say, this is the harvest time. This is the work time. There's still stuff. Maybe I do a little bit more prep and have some stuff. But at the end of the day, I can't trust that what I have stored for myself. At the end of the day, though I might have the greatest stock supply, got all the water bottles, got all the toilet paper, I got all the food, I got all the security stuff, I got all the bullets, I got all the stuff to just make sure I can go, well, I'm not off the grid because I live in a city, but I'm here, and if I need to, I got everything I can. At the end of the day, the only really thing that matters is God involved. Is God really going to be the one who's going to help you? We ask for his provision. All of it comes down to is God. All of it comes down to is he going to watch you through it all? And for the Christian, that's what should matter, because you're never going to feel like you've got enough. There will always be something more. And for us, it's to stop and say, at some point, I've done a part, and I trust God with the rest. So for you, I don't know what that answer is. I don't know the answer is how much supply till you feel, you've got it. And there's another piece of this too. For some of you, you supply because you're not just looking for yourself. You've got other people you've got to take care of. You look at 1 Timothy chapter 5, where we're going to be on Sunday. There's something to be said about taking care of your family, being diligent to take care of your family. There's some aspect where you need to do things like that. But at some point also, you've got to trust that God has equipped you. He's allowed you to get the things that you need to do, and then trust him with the rest. So this is a great balance, because it's not telling you absolutely don't store, and it's not telling you go and hoard. Should be a balance there. And the beauty of Christian liberty is that I'm not going to tell you what that balance is. That's between you and the Lord and how you do it. Now, this is really exciting because we're going to stop here. And next week, we're going to deal with the topic of protection. And it's really interesting, the idea of how to prepare for protection. So we've talked about food now, a little bit on the storing, but I want to talk about something else that's very specific about protection, and it also illustrates what we've been talking about here right now, which is that it's kind of between you and the Lord how you do this, but there's some guidelines. So don't be a hoarder. Don't be someone who just blows it up. You're packing everything in and you're stealing from, not stealing, but like you're going in and you're going to get everything because you're panicking. You don't trust God. You do enough and you trust the Lord with the rest, right? There's more to that, and there's more that will be illustrated. And there's 2 books that is going to come, 2 individuals that illustrate certain pieces of that there. All right, but I'm done for now. Let me pause for just a second. I'm going to go look because I asked you what other topics do we want to hear. And so far, here is what has come in. So far, I've gotten 1 response. Come on, people, pick it up. You can comment in the YouTube box below. You can comment on the Facebook page after I post it. You can email me, benp@rpbc.church. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to tell me what other things we're going to do, because going forward, for the summer at least, here's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be here and give you these 20, 30-minute clips of just talking through passages, and anything can go. We can do whatever you want to talk about. I got a lot of cool things we can talk about if you want to. A lot of weird topics we can do. Like last year, we did Jesus in the Old Testament. We did that for weeks, and that was awesome. So we can do more things like that if you'd like. But keep them coming. Let me know topics you want to hear. We're going to kind of finish up this prepper, series next week, and we'll go from there. Now, I think that's about it for now. Take care, guys. I will see you. Let me know if there's anything we can help you with. But we're going to continue on like this. Give me some topics. We'll keep them coming. Take care. Bye-bye.